Welcome to Walking with Jesus Bible Study. We're going to be in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 17. And this is Jesus speaking to the people and to the disciples and telling them why he is here. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. And I'll repeat that. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Now there's many arguments over on the internet, anywhere, even in churches and debates about that we are no longer under the law of Moses, and which is true. We are not under the old covenant. We're under the new covenant, the covenant of Jesus Christ. But it does not dismiss the Ten Commandments or the law, because it actually just gathers. It's still wine. It's just new wine that's being put into new wineskins, but it is still wine nonetheless. In fact, when Jesus makes the first two commandments, that he says that it is important that you should love God with all your mind, heart, body, and soul, might, and you should have no other God. And the second is to love your neighbors as you would love yourself, actually sums up all 10 commandments into two. So he didn't come to destroy the law. He come to fulfill the law. He come to be the living prophecy that they were speaking about, all the prophets have spoken about in the Old Testament. Now, I know that it says over and over again in the New Testament, Jesus is speaking, go and share the good news, go and spread the gospel. But people, preachers and teachers, are not fully understanding what Jesus means when he says that. In fact, some has taken it to the conclusion that we should not teach or worry about the Old Testament. In fact, they even begin to make Bibles where it's just only about the New Testament and has none of the Old in there. And I'm going to tell you right now, you have to have the Old with the New. That one side of the story, you have to have the other side of the story, because together it makes the whole story. This is God's story. It's about our history. Without the Old Testament, we would not understand, we would not be able to discern about the falseness and the lies of the government and this crap that we evolved from monkeys and this Big Bang Theory, because in the beginning it tells you who created the heaven and the earth. There's too much knowledgeable information in the Old Testament that we are to know and to learn about. To totally dismiss it and to sit there and say that Jesus said that we need to only share the gospel, and that was it. Let me explain something to you. When it comes to reading this Bible and to understanding it, you got to know everything it is about. You guys got to understand the time, the situation. And here's the thing. When Jesus was speaking to those people in that time, in that generation, almost all the Jews, pay attention now, spent all day, every day, knowing the Torah. They already knew the Torah. That's all they did. See, in this day and age, we have people who don't even go to church or barely go to church or even know about God. Don't even know about the Old Testament. So when Jesus said, go and spread the good news, go and spread the gospel around the world, all those people already knew the Old Testament. So they needed to hear the New Testament. They needed to know the new good news. The good news about Jesus is fulfilling the prophecy that the Messiah has come. It did not mean that you should not no longer pay attention to the Old Testament, that you should just focus on the good news. You're leaving too much out, too much that God is trying to reach us and teach us. There's too many lessons Yes, lessons. The whole thing with the Israelites being in the wilderness is one lesson after the other. Key to understanding our walk and how to be in our spirit and not of our flesh, how to be grateful, how to be content, how to be thankful. Lest we end up just like the first generation that was brought up out of Egypt and don't enter into the promised land because we are not grateful, we're not thankful, we're greedy, we make it about ourselves. No matter, even if we saw all the signs and wonders in the world, it would not matter because we would not care because we'd be too focused on ourselves. Does it not speak of this generation today? That everything's just about me, that nobody would even ask. If you was to ask somebody for some help, they're like, well, what are you going to do for me? What am I going to get out of it? Instead of, oh, sure, what do you need? Oh, I ain't expecting nothing back, man. It's good to help somebody out. What if maybe you'll be there when I'm in need? Because that's what it's supposed to be like. But everybody's so focused on themselves. See, when it comes to knowing this word, there's a lot of things you got to put into key factor when you go to preach it and when you go to teach it to somebody else so that you don't give them false doctrine. To say that Jesus said to only speak the good news is a lie. Jesus right here is telling you himself he didn't come to destroy the law. That means if he's not here to destroy it, we need to still pay attention to it. In fact, there's a book, I think I was calling it Daniel, but I'm mistaken. It's not the book of Daniel when I was saying it a while back ago. I'm thinking it might be Ezekiel. I can't remember now. But that book is the questions, and Revelation is the answers. One refers to the other, and they speak the same. You can't just sit there and preach and teach just strictly the new. You got to have the old. People got to understand their history. This is God's testimony. It is not to be cut in short. It's not to be chopped up into pieces to please the people. We got to get outside of ourselves because this is about Christ. It's not about us. Not only that, but we tend to keep in the comfort zone of the New Testament with this peace, loving, hippie Jesus that most people has created because he's all about love in this. That they forget about the Old Testament. They forget about the other side of God. The side of God that is his judgment, that is his wrath. I'm going to tell you something. When Jesus comes back, he's no longer going to be the slaughtered lamb. He is going to be the devouring, warring lion. Jesus was not nice. A lot of people try to picture him and say, oh, Jesus was so nice. No, he was not. He was very kind, but he was not nice. There's a major difference. He was kind enough to do the things that he did. But he wasn't this Mr. Nice guy. He wasn't pushed over. He wasn't ran over. He wasn't a doormat. He was kind. He did what he did out of the kindness of his heart. Not because he was a nice person, because he was a kind person. Major difference. And see, we have sit there and pictured because of the New Testament. And the reason why God came in all this loveness and grace and mercy. Because all his people in the Old Testament already knew of God's wrath, his law, his judgment. So now it was now a time to know that God was also a God of love, forgiveness, and grace and mercy. When you're in a marriage and before you have kids, you got a mom and you have a dad. God is like God the Father, and Jesus' love is like the love of a loving mother. Gives grace and gives mercy. And God is like the Father who lays the law down, sets the rules, and provides. We are his children.